Yo, what's good, y'all? Welcome to Wisdom Wednesday, presented by Urban Intellects. This is the first ever Wisdom Wednesday. So, as you know, some of you guys already know, I am an avid reader. I read literally every day on various different topics, and I come across a lot of powerful quotes that do me very well, actually, but they could do you guys well as well, right? And I just feel like it's a disservice to come across such vast depths of knowledge and not sharing with the folks that, I feel like can benefit, and also folks who may even just find it interesting, right? So that's really one of my main goals and intentions with starting this, right? So without further ado, let's jump into it. Oh, really quick too, before I jump into it, just to let y'all know, I primarily read about subjects. I like a lot of self help books because they really are dope. Like I know there are some people who hate them, but I'm like, nah. Like if you read the right ones, they could really change your life. So self help books. I like just personal empowerment books, right? I like books on my Black history, right, and just stuff that happened in the Black community. I like books on relationships, right? But real vetted, hard hitting books on that from like experts or at least folks who have been in relationships for a long time. Those are very helpful. And I like some philosophical books, business books as well, right? So you'll see just a bunch of different books and quotes and breakdowns of these quotes coming from this Wisdom Wednesday segment. All right. So, y'all, let's go ahead and hop into the first one. And you guys should see it on your screen too. But this one is from Laws of Human Nature by Robert Greene. So, Laws of Human Nature is a just fire book. Once you read that book, you'll probably look at people differently. You'll probably like understand the people around you a lot better too. So let's go ahead and get into this quote. I'm going to read the quote and then I'm going to go ahead and break down like some of my perspective on it, but you can take the quote and like everybody interprets and perceives things differently, right? So the quote goes as follows. Any success that we have in life inevitably depends on some good luck, timing, the conditions of others, the teachers who helped us along the way, the whims of the public in need of something new. Our tendency is to forget all of this and imagine that any success stems from our superior self. We begin to assume we can handle new challenges well before they are ready. After all, people have confirmed our greatness with their attention, and we want to keep it coming. We imagine we have the golden touch and that we now magically transfer our skills to some other medium or field without realizing it. We become more attuned to our ego and our fantasies than to the people we work for and our audience. We grow distant from those who are helping us, seeing them as tools to be used, and without any failures that occur, we tend to blame others. Success has an irresistible pull to it that tends to cloud our minds. Deep. My bad for the skipping and the reading. I got kids and they screaming in the background. It's a little bit distracting for me. So bear with me, y'all. All right. So that quote, right? Man, a lot of people do always say like, yeah, man, I did this myself. Da, 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 da. And, a lot of times folk are the leaders of their own lives. They're the leaders of their own worlds, right? But it almost has to be people who you had to collaborate with, who either fell in line with you or helped you get in line, right? There are people who set examples of success for you. And even if they directly had a hand in your life or not, a lot of times just them paving a way helps you, right? And those things deserve excuse me, those things deserve an acknowledgement, right? I thought that this one was pretty deep, right? Because also it talks about luck, and how a lot of our lives and how they come to be is luck, right? And even our success and our achievements can be attributed to some luck, right? Now, of course, we pay. Now, of course, we play. Excuse me. Coming off the flu, y'all. My bad. But of course, we play a big role in it, right? We got to take advantage of things. We got to make decisions. We got to make sure we're placing ourselves at the right place at the right time. But, you know, the way that the public moves and shakes will determine whether or not what we're doing is successful at the moment, right? Or even the thing that we planned, right? Like, I just thought, like, when I read this, I was like, wow, like, you know, folks do forget though too, like everything that helped them along the way. A lot of times your environment, even if it's not the best environment, and it could be a negative environment, sometimes that environment can build you up in a way that will prepare you for, you know, more comfortable environments, right? Or even more, you know, like, you know, dealing with folk in the streets, right? You might think that that is super negative until you get into like corporate, right? And folks is trying to snake you there too, right? And it's almost like the streets with suits on, right? And no violence, right? Or the violence is like underhanded and corporate violence where, like, you know, folks is doing little underhanded things to try to undermine you, right? So yeah, you know, that quote was pretty deep to me because it you know, you got to look at all of the things that contributed to your success, right? Like even the things that molded your mindset, right? So yeah, dope quote. So the second quote that we have is from a book that I read that I just finished reading a couple months ago, The Art of Impossible. So this quote goes as follows: lifelong learning is the technical term for this ton. Lifelong learning keeps the brain sharp, both preventing cognitive decline and training up memory. It also boosts confidence, communication skills, and career opportunities. These improvements are the reason psychologists consider lifelong learning foundational to satisfaction and well-being. So man, this to me, I love this quote because like I've learned so much from becoming a lifelong learner. So a little bit about me, just a little tiny part of my backstory. I ended up having to leave college due to like financial issues, and and I wanted to major in business and become a business owner like that. And I ended up having to leave college, and it kind of broke me a little bit. And so what I decided to do was I was like, you know what? I'm not going to let college define me. I'm going to just go buy a whole bunch of business books and I'm going to read them. And then once I feel comfortable enough to start a business based on what I've read, I'm going to start a business. And I did that. Right. And I actually did start my business, and my business did make some money. Right. And it ran for about, you know, maybe like 3 years until the pandemic closed it down. Right. But yeah, y'all, like I wouldn't have gotten to that point without being a regular learner, right? Because I had never read a book cover to cover before then. I just decided to take my future into my own hands, my own education into my own hands, and I ended up falling in love with it, and I'm here today, right? Like literally, the reason why I'm doing this right now is because I am a lifelong learner, right? Yeah, yeah, it's because I am a lifelong learner, right? So yeah, y'all, like it has I feel like it has made me 10 times smarter, right? Just reading like things that I'm interested in, right? And like not the books about, not like fiction books or anything, right? Like real either biographies or self-improvement books, really, mostly for me, and history. But like, yeah, it has changed my life completely. I don't even like using the word change. It has upgraded my life completely, right? Yes, my communication skills, like people tell me all the time, like, how did you become so articulate? Right. And again, I just told you, I didn't even finish college. Right. And people tell me that I'm very articulate, career opportunities for sure. For sure. Right. Like the position I have now, I would have never even thought that I could have gotten it a couple years ago. Right. Yeah, like it has made me extremely sharp, right? Like I understand things that folks with college degrees don't understand or see in people just because of all of the different subjects that I read and all of the different places that I can go, right? So definitely dope book and a very dope quote. And that one really hit home for me because I mean, I read this like a couple months ago, but I've been on this lifelong learning journey ever since I was 20 years old. So, and I'm about to turn 29. All right, y'all. Next quote. This one is from a book called The Movement That Made Us by David Dennis Jr. and David Dennis Sr. I read this book as a part of a book club with one of my folks. But this quote goes as follows. Rudy and I would spend the rest of the night driving around New Orleans, begging doctors and hospitals to take injured riders from Alabama. One after another turned us away. Doctors and nurses avoiding eye contact with us. They told us they couldn't close wounds on men and women who were fighting for equality. Hospital administrators looked at the ground and told us they did not have enough staff to stitch up heroes. So this book is about a dude. If I remember correctly, I haven't read this book in a while, maybe even over like a year. But the bus got bombed, so they were freedom riders, and their bus got bombed, right? And so there are a lot of injured folks who needed like emergency medical attention, and nobody wanted to help the folk who got blew up and got bombed on the freedom rides, and this just goes to show like this was not like 100 years ago. All right. And also we're in really weird times right now, right? Where, again, I made a video on this about them trying to eliminate DEI, and more than eliminating DEI, they're repealing civil rights era executive orders and laws, right? So, this is just a reminder really of where we've come from, right? And like, especially if you black, like this should really hit you. Like, man, they blew up a whole bus, right? A bus of black folk and now that I'm remembering this quote, like later on in the book, he also, not later on, but like later on after this, he talks about, or even before, he talks about the explosion and how so many people were just like it was bad, right? Like folks was bleeding and like broken up and flesh out and exposed and dripping blood, right? All in the name of black folks' freedom. And not just black folk freedom, right? But for access to the economy for all of the immigrants, really, because that's really what happened. That's really who benefited from, these civil rights era laws and stuff like that, right? So yeah, y'all. I mean, man, they avoiding eye contact, right? Like doctors and nurses, like telling black folks that they are, they're not gonna help injured, bleeding out, dying people, right? So yeah, I had that was very shocking to me. So I had highlighted that quote when I saw it. So yeah, so that's quote number 3. And maybe I should do these live because I feel like I want to ask y'all like which one for number 4, but I just found one for number 4. All right, y'all. So Listen closely for this one. So this one is from a book called Discipline is Destiny by Ryan Holiday. Fire book, y'all. If y'all trying to get control of y'all lives and y'all trying to understand the tenets of how to control yourself, and not just control yourself, but control and direct yourself, then the book Discipline is Destiny is for you. All right. So this quote goes as follows. Really quick, my bad. The book, and I should talk a little bit about the book before I do these, right? Before I hop in. But basically, this book, Ryan Holiday studies the Stoics. The Stoics were a group of philosophers in ancient Greece and Rome. Okay. So, yeah, they were ancient philosophers in Greece and Rome. And a lot of their philosophies was around like self-control. So Stoicism centered around like self-control, discipline, being virtuous, things like that. Okay, let's go ahead and get into it. So the quote goes as follows. Most of us spend our lives building up walls between us and anything unpleasant, not understanding how dependent that makes us. The whole point of success, we feel, is to never have to struggle, to have not only what we need, but everything that we want on demand. Hot water, nice clothes, food of the finest ingredients, cooked by the best restaurants, delivered to our door in minutes, at the slightest pang of hunger. This is perfectly fine to enjoy in moderation. Why shouldn't life generally be comfortable? Still, we must understand that the modern world is conspiring against us, working to degrade our ability to endure even at the slightest difficulty. It spoils us, and it sets us up for failure or slavery. Man, do I even need to break that down? Because that spoke very clearly for itself. A lot of the things and the delicacies that we get used to, they really make us rigid, and things that are too rigid can be broken, right? Easily, right? And, it can be broken, and not only could they be broken, but like he said, you can become a slave to these things, right? A lot of these things are vices, or they can become vices, like America, and this is the other weird part about a lot of the things that, folks enjoy, and, myself included, right? I'm not exempt from this, but a lot of things that we tend to enjoy and, overindulge in are vices, right? Like, we literally become like a country of like recycling vices, right? Like, just think about the things that you just overindulge in, right? Like, yeah, I don't know. Like, I mean, those things, our vices, make us like slaves, right? Literally, especially the amount of access that we have, right? Like, you think about the folks back in the 40s and stuff like that. Like, it was hard to get access to a majority of vices, right? Now, all of them is like a click away, right? All of them is a click away. Back then, the main vice you could get was alcohol, right? And you probably had to walk up the street, around the corner, and, it took you a minute to do that, but that was probably the most accessible vice that you can get your hands on. Now everything, right? Porn, you got DoorDash, Grubhub. You can get the finest. You can get Taco Bell, or you can get Ruth Chris delivered to your house, and folks is overeating, overspending, overindulging in everything with no discipline or anything. And so again, you either become a slave to these things, or these things will basically crash you out. And that's what he mean by like failure, right? Like, these things will crash you out, where now you're not even paying attention to the goals, right? You're not keeping the main thing as is a central tenet in this book, right? So yeah, man, this is a fire quote. Again, you know, that's just my breakdown, but take from it what you get from it. And yeah, that's what four. Any other ones that I got that inspire me right now? They kind of long, I know. How about this? We got a bonus one. I'm gonna do one bonus one. Um, so bonus one is from the 7 Principles for Making Marriage Work by John Gottman and Nan Silver. And so again, I read this book. I'm married, all right, married man, and so I like to read books on relationships just so like, you know, another very, very quick story. I was raised an only kid and my parents weren't that affectionate. And so like I really didn't grow up understanding how to like how women operate, right? Until, you know, you get into a relationship with somebody who, you know, you love, they love you, and you're not really sure how to make them feel loved, right? And so, you know, I'm like, all right, well, and nobody I know could really give me good advice on this. So let me read to like understand from like experts who break this down. This is not the first book I read. I read a bunch of books on it, but you know, this was a quote that stood out for me to me from this book. It goes as follows. Um, for many couples, just realizing that they shouldn't take their everyday interactions for granted makes an enormous difference in their relationships. Remind yourself that being helpful to each other will do far more for the strength and passion of your marriage than a 2-week Bahamas getaway. Man, because folks be trying to fix the wrong problems in their relationship, man. You know, they think money and vacations and all this other like stuff, external stuff is going to fix issues, and whole time really all your partner is looking for is for you to assist them in a way that they want to be assisted. Sometimes that take communication, right? Like sometimes, you know, we neither one of us is mind reader, so you know you gotta let it be known what you want, what you expect, and also make sure that your expectations are rooted in reality. You know, and but also just helping somebody in an area where you know that they need to be helped goes a very long way, especially when they don't ask for it, right? And you just show up for them in an area that you know that they need assistance in. It goes a long way. Goes a long way in a relationship. And I mean, it makes you valuable, right? And these are those things where like these are just those like unspoken rules in relationships, and all relationships, right? All relationships that you value, you should be trying to like be more helpful, right? But especially in your relationships with your partners, right? Definitely want to try to be helpful, both ends of the spectrum, right? Men and women, right? Because folks appreciate that type of, you know, they appreciate assistance with the things that they care about, right? Whether it's around the house, on a project, right? It might just be like making sure that the kids don't bother the parent who work from home, or making sure that the parent who work long hours get to come home and relax without the kids yelling in their face, right? Or whatever, right? Cooking a meal like before they go, making their lunch, something like that, right? Anything, right? A massage, anything, right? But just take the initiative to be helpful in your relationship, right? So yeah, and I found that that's very helpful, and from my observation, that's also helpful in relationships. And so yeah, y'all, that pretty much concludes Wisdom Wednesday for the first one. If that was too long or whatever, maybe it's too short, maybe I want more quotes, whatever, let me know in the comments. Also, let me know your thoughts. Let me know what you guys got out of these quotes, right? Because everybody perceives things differently. This is really what I'm going off of right now, just off of the top of the head. I didn't write no notes. I didn't do anything. I just sat here, turned on the camera, turned on the mic, read the quotes, and gave my perspective right now in a spot, right now in a moment. All right. So that's pretty much it, y'all. Again, please, subscribe as well. I'm trying to grow this channel and I'm trying to give value to the people at the same time. So yeah, y'all, let's go ahead and run it up. Like it, share, subscribe, and yeah. Peace, family.